Dr. Kaelin Vareis adjusted the headset, resting over her ears, her fingers hovering over the console as she replayed the faint signal for the seventh time that day. The signal, a haunting, rhythmic pulse interspersed with bursts of static, originated from an uncharted region at the far edge of the known universe. It was a place devoid of stars, planets, or anything that should emit such a precise and structured sound. "This doesn't make sense," Kaelin muttered, her voice barely audible in the dimly lit observation chamber aboard the research vessel Ecliptica. Her words hung in the sterile air, joined only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. Nothing should be transmitting from there. Nothing's out there. The anomaly had first been detected 2 weeks ago by a deep space observatory station near the Coraline Nebula. At first, it had been dismissed as background noise or a technical glitch. But Kaelin, a renowned astrophysicist and expert in cosmic phenomena, had insisted on investigating further. Now, she wasn't so sure she had made the right call. Captain Joran Thal strode into the chamber, his imposing frame filling the doorway. His silver-threaded uniform was immaculate, but his tired eyes betrayed the weight of the decision to divert the Ecliptica from its scheduled mission to pursue the signal. "Anything new?" Joran asked, crossing his arms as he approached Kaelin's console. Kaelin shook her head, her brow furrowed. "It's consistent. The pattern repeats every 49 seconds. But it's not natural. It's too deliberate, too precise." Joran leaned over the console, his gaze fixed on the pulsating waveform displayed on the screen. "You're certain it's not a malfunction?" "I've triple-checked the instruments. It's real, Captain, and whatever is sending it, it's old. The signal's redshift suggests it's been traveling for billions of years." Joran frowned. "So it's a relic, then, a remnant of some ancient civilization?" "Maybe," Kaelin replied, her voice laced with uncertainty. "Or it could be something we've never encountered before." Before Joran could respond, the ship's AI, Lumi, interrupted with its crisp, dispassionate voice. "Captain Thal, Dr. Vareis, the signal's intensity has increased by 20% in the last 2 minutes. It is now emitting a secondary frequency." Kaelin's eyes widened, and her fingers flew over the console. "That's impossible. A signal this old shouldn't change." The room's holographic projector sprang to life, displaying a swirling sphere of light, Lumi's avatar. "The signal is now transmitting a binary code, Dr. Vareis. Would you like me to translate?" "Yes, immediately," Kaelin said, her voice rising in urgency. The holographic sphere shimmered as Lumi processed the data. After a moment, the AI spoke again. Translation complete. The signal reads, "Proceed to source. Time is ending." Joran's expression darkened. "What does that mean?" Kaelin stared at the waveform, her pulse quickening. "I don't know. But whatever's out there, it's trying to communicate, and it wants us to follow." Joran straightened, his jaw tightening. "Lumi, plot a course to the signal's origin." "Captain," Kaelin protested, "we don't know what's waiting for us. It could be a trap, or it could be a discovery that changes everything," Joran interjected. "We came out here to find answers, didn't we?" Kaelin hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "You're right, but we need to proceed cautiously." "Agreed," Joran said. "Lumi, keep us at yellow alert, and Kaelin, keep analyzing that signal. I want to know everything about it before we arrive." As the Ecliptica adjusted its course, Kaelin couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at her. The signal's message wasn't just a call, it was a warning. And as the ship hurtled toward the dark, uncharted expanse, she couldn't help but wonder who or what was waiting for them at the edge of time. As the Ecliptica approaches the signal source, strange anomalies begin to plague the ship. Time itself seems to bend and distort, forcing the crew to question the reality of their mission and the true purpose of the message they're chasing. What is the source, and why does it seem to know more about the crew than they know about themselves? The Ecliptica glided through the dark expanse of uncharted space, the void outside its hull thicker and blacker than anything the crew had ever seen. The stars seemed distant and dim, as if reluctant to shine too brightly in this forgotten region of the cosmos. Within the ship, tension brewed like a storm cloud, palpable and heavy. Kaelin sat hunched over her console in the observation chamber, her hands trembling slightly as she analyzed the ever-evolving signal. The message had changed again. The binary sequence had shifted, this time spelling out a cryptic phrase. The answers lie in the fracture. What fracture? Kaelin muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. Her mind raced through possibilities, a spatial anomaly, a tear in the fabric of space-time, or perhaps even a rift in reality itself. None of the answers were comforting. Captain Jorin entered the chamber, his presence a steadying force in the mounting unease. "Anything new?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying the weight of growing concern. Kaelin nodded, motioning to the display. "The signal's evolving. It's not just a call or a warning. It's guiding us somewhere specific. It's as if it's adapting to our approach." "Adapting?" Jorin frowned. "You mean it's alive?" Kaelin hesitated. "Not alive in the way we understand, but aware. It's like it knows we're coming and is changing itself to ensure we don't turn back." Jorin's face hardened. "That's unsettling. What about the anomalies? Lumi said the energy spikes were growing." Kaelin exhaled sharply, her frustration mounting. "They're unpredictable. Temporal distortions, localized gravity fluctuations, electromagnetic surges. It's like the laws of physics are unraveling the closer we get to the signal's source. I've never seen anything like it." The ship's AI interrupted their conversation. "Captain Thal, Dr. Vareis, you may want to come to the bridge. We've detected something unusual ahead." Jorin exchanged a glance with Kaelin before leading the way. As they entered the bridge, the tension among the crew was palpable. All eyes were on the forward viewport, which displayed a swirling, chaotic expanse of light and shadow. It resembled a storm, but it wasn't a meteorological event. It was something far more profound. "What are we looking at?" Jorin asked, his voice low. Lumi's holographic avatar flickered into existence. "The anomaly ahead is a spatial fracture, a rift in the fabric of the universe. It is the likely source of the signal." Kaelin stared in awe and dread. The fracture was breathtaking and terrifying, a shifting vortex of iridescent colors and jagged voids. It pulsed with a rhythm that matched the signal's hum, as if it were alive and breathing. This is the fracture," she whispered. "The one the signal mentioned." Jorin's jaw clenched. "And what happens if we enter it?" "That is uncertain," Lumi replied. "The rift exhibits properties inconsistent with known physics. Prolonged exposure could lead to unpredictable consequences, including temporal displacement or structural destabilization of the ship." "Captain," one of the bridge officers interjected, "we're receiving another message from the signal." "Let's hear it," Jorin ordered, his gaze fixed on the fracture. The audio crackled to life, filling the bridge with the now familiar rhythmic hum, interspersed with faint, otherworldly whispers. But this time the message was clear and chilling. "Enter the fracture. Your destiny awaits." The words hung in the air like a lead weight. Jorin turned to Kaelin, his expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. "What do you think?" Kaelin hesitated, her mind torn between the allure of discovery and the fear of the unknown. "If we go in, there's no guarantee we'll come back. But if this signal has been waiting billions of years for someone to find it, then maybe it's worth the risk." Jorin nodded, the decision made. "Helm, prepare to take us in. All crew to yellow alert." As the Ecliptica approached the fracture, the ship trembled, buffeted by waves of energy. The lights flickered and strange distortions rippled through the air, as if reality itself were bending. Kaelin gripped her console as the ship crossed the threshold into the fracture. The hum of the signal grew deafening, and the world outside the viewport dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Time seemed to stretch and compress, moments passing in an instant and lingering for eternity. And then, with a sudden jolt, everything went still. The Ecliptica emerged into a space unlike any they had ever seen. It was a void, but it wasn't empty. Suspended in the distance was a massive, incomprehensible structure, a labyrinthine construct of glowing lines and shifting planes. It defied geometry, its angles and edges constantly in flux, as if it were both there and not there. Joran's voice broke the stunned silence. "What in the name of the stars is that?" Kaelin's eyes widened, a mix of terror and wonder flooding her expression. That's what the signal was leading us to. The crew of the Ecliptica begins to explore the enigmatic construct, only to discover that it holds secrets far beyond their comprehension. As they delve deeper, they find traces of an ancient civilization, and the horrifying truth of why the fracture exists. But something is watching them, and it's not friendly. Will they uncover the construct's purpose before it's too late? The Ecliptica drifted cautiously toward the incomprehensible construct, its glowing lines and shifting planes seeming to pulse in rhythm with the signal. The closer they came, the more the crew felt an unshakable sensation, a mix of awe and dread, as though they were being scrutinized by an unseen force. Kaelin stood at her console, the scanner readings flooding in with data she could barely make sense of. "This thing, it's not just a structure," she said, her voice trembling. "It's alive, or at least it behaves like it is. The energy signatures they're reacting to us." Joran nodded grimly, his eyes locked on the construct displayed on the viewport. "It's like it's aware of our presence." As the Ecliptica drew closer, the construct began to shift. Pathways of light and shadow formed, extending like glowing tendrils, guiding the ship toward a massive entrance that yawned open as if welcoming them or swallowing them whole. Lumi's holographic form flickered onto the bridge. "Captain, the entrance appears stable, but the spatial distortions within are extreme. Navigation systems will be unreliable once we enter." Joran's jaw tightened. "Noted. Helm, take us in slow. Kaelin, keep those scanners running. I want to know the moment anything changes." The Ecliptica glided into the entrance, the ship bathed in the strange, pulsating light of the construct. As they passed through the threshold, the ship shuddered, and the hum of the signal grew louder, resonating deep in their bones. Inside, the construct was a labyrinth of shifting corridors and chambers, each one impossibly vast and intricately detailed. The walls were made of some kind of translucent material, etched with symbols that seemed to shift and rearrange themselves as the ship passed by. The crew watched in stunned silence as the labyrinth revealed itself, a kaleidoscope of light and shadow that defied all logic. Kaelin's voice broke the silence. "These symbols, they're not just patterns, they're a language, a very old one. Can you translate it?" Joran asked, his tone sharp with urgency. "I'm trying," Kaelin replied, her fingers flying across the console. "But it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's like it's not meant to be read in a linear way. It's more like a song, a story told in layers." Before Joran could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing the crew off balance. An alert blared, and Lumi's voice filled the bridge. "Warning. Localized gravitational anomalies detected. Structural integrity holding, but prolonged exposure could compromise the ship." "What's causing it?" Joran demanded. Kaelin's face went pale as she studied the readings. "It's the construct. Before she could finish, the ship's lights flickered and a deep, resonant voice filled the air. It wasn't Lumi, and it wasn't coming from the ship. It was coming from the construct itself. "You have come unbidden. Speak your purpose or be unmade." The voice was neither mechanical nor organic. It was something else entirely, layered and vast, as if the construct itself were speaking. The crew froze, the weight of the words pressing down on them like a physical force. Joran stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension. "We came seeking answers. The signal brought us here. The construct's walls shimmered, and the symbols rearranged themselves, forming a pattern that pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. The voice returned, its tone cold and calculating. "The signal was not for you. You trespass on a path not meant for your kind." Kaelin's eyes widened as she realized the implications. "Captain," she said urgently, "the signal, it wasn't a message, it was a test." Joran turned to her, his expression grim. "A test for what?" Kaelin hesitated, her voice trembling. "A test to see if we're worthy, to see if we belong here." The construct rumbled, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. The voice returned, its tone more menacing. "You have crossed the threshold. You will be judged." The labyrinth shifted around them, the corridors twisting and turning as if the construct were alive and reshaping itself. The ship's systems flickered and groaned under the strain, and Lumi's voice echoed with urgency. "Captain, the construct is destabilizing. I recommend immediate withdrawal." "Negative," Joran snapped. "We're not leaving until we know what this place is." Kaelin stared at the symbols, her mind racing. "It's not destabilizing," she said, her voice filled with sudden realization. "It's testing us. It wants to see if we can solve its puzzle." "A puzzle?" Riven muttered, his usual sarcasm replaced by genuine concern. "What kind of puzzle?" Kaelin pointed to the symbols. "This language. It's not just a message. It's an equation, a key. If we can decipher it, we might be able to stabilize the construct, or at least understand what it's trying to tell us." Joran nodded, his decision made. "Do it, but be quick. We don't know how much time we have." Kaelin focused on the symbols, her mind working at a feverish pace. The labyrinth around them continued to shift, the pressure mounting with each passing moment. The crew held their breath, the weight of the construct's judgment pressing down on them. And then the symbols stopped shifting. They locked into place, forming a pattern that glowed with a steady, pulsing light. The voice returned, its tone neutral but filled with an undeniable sense of finality. "You have begun to understand. Proceed." The labyrinth shifted again, but this time it formed a clear pathway, leading deeper into the construct. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the tension palpable. "Captain," Kaelin said quietly, "I think we passed the first test, but there's more waiting for us." As the Ecliptica follows the newly revealed path, the crew discovers a chamber filled with ancient artifacts and cryptic warnings. But they are not alone. Something is watching them, something that does not want them to succeed. What secrets lie at the heart of the construct, and what price will they pay to uncover them? The glowing path led the Ecliptica into a cavernous chamber, vast beyond comprehension. The walls were alive with shifting patterns of light, their intricate symbols pulsating in time with an unseen rhythm. Suspended in the center of the room was an enormous orb, its surface a swirling vortex of light and shadow. It radiated a power that was almost unbearable, making the air itself feel heavy and alive. Kaelin's voice trembled as she took in the sight. This isn't just a construct. This is a repository of knowledge, of history. It's ancient, Captain, far older than anything we've ever encountered. Joran stepped forward cautiously, his eyes locked on the orb. If this is a repository, then it holds the answers we've been searching for. Lumi, can we access it? The AI's hologram flickered into view, her expression unusually serious. Captain, the orb's energy readings are beyond anything in my database. Any attempt to interface with it could destabilize its containment field, or worse, trigger a catastrophic response. We don't have a choice, Joran said, his voice firm. We didn't come all this way to turn back now. Kaelin, can you make sense of it? Kaelin nodded hesitantly, stepping closer to the orb. The symbols on the walls shifted as she approached, their light intensifying as if reacting to her presence. She extended her wrist console, and a beam of light connected it to the orb, causing the chamber to hum with energy. The orb responded instantly, its swirling surface stabilizing to reveal images. fleeting glimpses of worlds and events that defied explanation. Entire civilizations rose and fell within seconds. Stars were born and destroyed, and strange alien figures moved across landscapes that could not exist. "It's a record," Kaelin whispered, her eyes wide with awe. "A record of everything, past, present, and future. This is what the construct was protecting." Joran's gaze hardened. "What does it say about the signal? Why did it bring us here?" Kaelin's console flashed with data, and her expression grew grim. "The signal wasn't meant for us. It was a call, a beacon. Something, or someone, activated it to summon others." "Others?" Riven muttered, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "You mean we're not the only ones here?" Before Kaelin could respond, the chamber shuddered violently. The symbols on the walls flared, and a low guttural sound echoed through the room. It was a growl, deep and primal, reverberating through the very fabric of the construct. "We're not alone," Lumi confirmed, her voice laced with urgency. "Multiple life forms detected. They're converging on our location." The crew spun around, weapons drawn as shadowy figures emerged from the periphery of the chamber. They were humanoid but grotesquely twisted, their bodies warped by some unnatural force. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and they moved with an eerie, synchronized grace. "Protect the orb," Joran commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We can't let them destroy it." The shadowy figures surged forward, their movements fluid and relentless. Riven opened fire, his plasma rifle lighting up the chamber as he mowed down the first wave of attackers. Kaelin ducked behind a console, frantically working to stabilize the connection with the orb. "They're trying to sever the link," she shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "If they succeed, we'll lose everything." Joran and Riven held the line, their weapons blazing as they fought off the attackers. The shadowy figures moved with unnatural speed, their bodies seeming to dissolve and reform as they dodged the incoming fire. "They're not just attackers," Riven growled, his voice strained. "They're protectors. They think we're the threat." Kaelin's voice was frantic. "I need more time, just a few more seconds." The orb flared brighter, its surface pulsing with an intensity that made the entire chamber shake. The symbols on the walls began to converge, forming a single, massive glyph that hovered in the air above the orb. The shadowy figures faltered, their movements becoming erratic as if they were reacting to the change. "The glyph!" Kaelin shouted. "It's the key! We need to activate it!" "How?" Joran demanded, firing another burst of plasma at the advancing figures. Kaelin didn't answer. She leaped toward the orb, her wrist console still connected to its surface. The symbols on her console matched the glyph, and she pressed her hand against it, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Accessing now!" The orb pulsed violently, and a wave of energy erupted from its surface, sweeping through the chamber. The shadowy figures disintegrated instantly, their forms dissolving into wisps of light that vanished into the void. The chamber fell silent, the only sound the hum of the orb as it stabilized. The glyph above it rotated slowly, its light softening as if it had been pacified. Kaelin collapsed to her knees, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "It's done. The link is secure." Joran helped her to her feet, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "What did you find?" Kaelin's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of wonder and dread. "The orb. It's part of a network. There are others like it scattered across the galaxy. Together they form a web, a system designed to safeguard something even greater." "And the signal?" Joran pressed. Kaelin hesitated, her voice trembling. "The signal was a warning. Something is coming, Captain. Something that even this construct was designed to defend against." As the Ecliptica prepares to leave the construct, Kaelin deciphers a final, cryptic message from the orb. The vanguard stirs. The gatekeeper falters. Prepare for the reckoning. What is the vanguard, and what unimaginable threat does it herald? The crew has only begun to uncover the truth, and the galaxy's greatest trial lies ahead.